Hi, and welcome to English-Fabule. Are you learning English? Great. Let's learn English with a very interesting story. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Let's get started.
Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria was born on December 1, 1949. He was born in Rio Negro, a city in Colombia. His father, Abel de Jesus Derry Escobar, was a farmer. He did not have much money. He often worked on other people's farms to feed his family. Pablo's mother was Hermilda de los Dolores Gaviria Berrio. She was a school teacher. Pablo had 6 brothers and sisters. He was the third child in the family. When Pablo was a young boy, his family moved from Rio Negro. They went to live in Medellin. Medellin was a city that was growing very fast. Many years ago, Spanish people started a small village there. The village grew bigger over time. By the year 1905, about 60,000 people lived in Medellin. When Pablo was born, the city had more than 300,000 people. It continued to grow quickly. When Pablo was a young man, more than 1 million people lived there. Medellin became a big center for factories and businesses. It was the second biggest city in Colombia after the capital city, Bogotá, but this fast growth caused problems. Many people who moved to Medellin were very poor. There were not enough jobs or good houses for everyone. Pablo's family moved to this busy, poor city in the 1950s. His mother wanted him to do well in school. She had big hopes for him. But Pablo did not like school very much. When he was a teenager, he started getting into trouble. There was a lot of crime in Medellin because so many people were poor. Around the age of 14, Pablo joined a street gang. He soon left school. He was involved in fights. One story says he shot another young man in the foot with a gun. Because of this, Pablo spent his first nights in a prison. He also started doing small crimes with his friends. Some people say they stole heavy stones from graves. They cleaned off the names and sold the stones as new. Others say Pablo sold fake school certificates to people. It is difficult to know if all these stories about his early life are true. This was the beginning for a boy who would later become one of the most famous criminals in the world. 2. A life of crime begins. Colombia had many problems in the 20th century. Politics was difficult. There was a long fight between 2 main groups, the liberals and the conservatives. This fight led to a terrible time called La Violencia. It was a civil war that lasted for 10 years. More than 200,000 people died. Later, in 1964, a new conflict started. Groups like the FARC, the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, began fighting the government. The FARC controlled large parts of the countryside. This political instability and fighting made it easier for crime to grow. The government was busy with the conflict and could not control everything in the country. At the same time, people in other countries like the United States wanted illegal drugs. First, marijuana was popular. Then more people started using cocaine. Cocaine comes from the leaves of the coca plant. Colombia's weather and land are perfect for growing coca plants. Because the government was weak in many areas, especially in the countryside where groups like FARC had power, it became easy to grow coca and make cocaine. These armed groups often allowed drug production in their areas. They taxed the drug producers to get money for weapons. This helped the drug trade become very big in Colombia. Pablo Escobar saw an opportunity in this situation. He was already involved in crime in Medellin. When he was in his later teenage years, he moved from small crimes to bigger ones. He started working with others in organized crime. He sold illegal cigarettes. He stole cars. He and his group also started kidnapping rich people. They asked for large amounts of money, called ransoms, to return the people safely. Escobar wanted to get rich very fast. He was ready to do any crime to make money. He started smuggling marijuana. Around this time, in the early 1970s, Pablo met a young woman named Maria Victoria Henao. She was only a teenager. Pablo started dating her. Maria's family did not like Pablo. Her mother told her that if she stayed with him, she would spend her life visiting him in prison. But Maria did not listen. They got married in 1976. Pablo was 26 years old and Maria was 15. They later had 2 children, a son named Juan and a daughter named Manuela. Just before he got married in the mid-1970s, Pablo Escobar started working in the cocaine trade. Cocaine use was growing very fast in the United States. A woman named Griselda Blanco, who was already a smuggler, helped him get started. At first, Pablo's job was simple. He worked for other smugglers in Medellin. He delivered coca paste, the first stage of making cocaine, to secret places. There, workers turned the paste into powder cocaine. This was the beginning of his journey into the drug business that would make him famous and feared. 3. Building a big business. Pablo started his own business sending cocaine to the United States. He used small planes to fly the drugs. This was the start of a big group called the Medellin Cartel, but there was a problem early on. In May 1976, the police stopped Pablo and some friends. They had 18 kilograms of coca paste with them. Coca paste is used to make cocaine. Pablo tried to give money to the police and the judges. This is called a bribe. When the bribes did not work, he used violence. He ordered his men to kill the police officers who arrested him. The officers could not talk about the crime in court. Because of this, the judges dropped the case. Pablo was free. This showed how Pablo worked. He had a saying, plata o plomo. It means silver or lead. Silver means money, like bribes. Lead means bullets, like violence. If people did not take his money, he used violence against them. Pablo's business grew very fast in the late 1970s. He needed help to send more cocaine to America. He started working with 2 men, Carlos Lader and George Jung. Lader was from Colombia and Germany. Jung was from America. They met in prison in the United States and planned to sell cocaine. When they got out of prison, they started moving cocaine for Pablo. They sent it from Colombia through the Caribbean islands to Florida in America. Carlos later had a big idea. In 1978, he bought land on a small island in the Bahamas called Norman's Key. He forced people living there to sell their land. Sometimes he killed people who did not want to sell. Later built an airport runway and buildings to store drugs. Norman's Key became a private stop for the Medellin cartel's drugs. Big planes brought cocaine from Colombia to the island. Then, smaller planes took the cocaine secretly into the United States. Every day, more than 300 kilograms of cocaine arrived there. This made Pablo and later very, very rich. They became billionaires. Pablo also worked with a pilot named Barry Seal. Seal was from Louisiana in America. Starting around 1981, Seal flew drugs for Pablo. He used small planes that flew very low. Police radar could not see them easily. Seal flew over the sea to Louisiana and dropped packages of cocaine from the plane. People on the ground picked up the drugs. But Barry Seal got into trouble. The American Drug Police, called the DEA, caught him in 1983. To avoid prison, Seal started helping the police in 1984. He gave them information about Pablo and his business. Pablo found out that Seal was helping the police. In February 1986, Pablo ordered his men to kill Barry Seal. 4. Rich and famous. Pablo Escobar made a lot of money from selling cocaine. He became very rich. He used some of this money to buy land in Colombia near a town called Puerto Triunfo. This place was about 150 kilometers east of Medellin. The land was big, about 20 square kilometers. Here, he built a huge estate called Hacienda Nápoles. It was a special place for him and his family. Hacienda Nápoles had a large house built in the old Spanish style. It also had a park with many statues. Pablo loved animals, so he built his own private zoo there. He brought many unusual animals from different countries to his zoo. There were zebras, elephants, giraffes, antelopes, and ostriches. Pablo especially liked hippos. He imported many hippos. Some of these hippos escaped later, and now wild hippos live in that area of Colombia. Pablo also collected old and expensive cars and motorcycles. He had a large collection at Hacienda Nápoles. He even built a small track for racing cars and a place for bullfighting shows. He wanted to build something like an old Greek building there too, but he never finished it. Hacienda Nápoles was not his only big property. He also bought a very large pink house on Miami Beach in Florida in the 1970s. At that time, people did not know him as a big drug lord, so the house was in his name. Later, the U.S. government took the house away. Pablo also owned a big estate on an island called Isla Grande. This is a large island near the coast of Colombia. His estate there had a mansion, extra apartments for guests, swimming pools, and a special place for helicopters to land and take off. The Medellin cartel made billions of dollars. They made so much cash money that it became a big problem. It was very difficult to spend all the money. It was also hard to hide it or make it look like legal money. This is called money laundering. They tried sending money to Panama. Sometimes they bought gold, melted it down, and turned it into clean money in other countries, but they still had too much cash. They needed thousands of dollars just for rubber bands to hold the stacks of money together. So they had to hide the cash in secret places. The cartel owned hundreds of properties, and many were used just to hide money. They often hid large amounts of cash inside walls or under floors. Sometimes this hidden money is still found today. For example, in the year 2020, Pablo's nephew, Nicolas Escobar, found $18 million hidden inside the wall of a house Pablo used to own. 5. Politics and danger. As Pablo Escobar's business grew bigger, the danger also grew. He made a lot of money, but he was always worried about getting caught. His biggest fear was extradition. Extradition means being sent to another country to face trial. For Escobar, this meant being sent to the United States. In 1979, the government of Colombia signed an extradition agreement with the U.S. This agreement started fully in 1982. It was a very serious problem for Escobar. If he was caught and sent to the U.S., he would probably spend the rest of his life in a prison there. Escobar fought hard against this treaty. He started using violence against people who supported it. His men carried out kidnappings and murders. They bombed buildings. He hoped this terror campaign would make the government change its mind about extradition. At the same time, Escobar wanted the Colombian people to like him. He tried to create an image of himself as a hero, like Robin Hood. He gave away large amounts of money. Sometimes he just gave cash directly to poor families in Medellin. He also used his money to build things for the community. He paid for new houses in poor areas. He built football fields for children to play on and parks for families. He even helped improve roads in Medellin. At Christmas, he sometimes dressed like Santa Claus and gave expensive gifts to poor children. He hoped these actions would make ordinary people see him as a friend, not just a criminal. He thought having popular support could help protect him. In 1982, Escobar decided to try politics. He became a candidate for the Colombian Liberal Party. He wanted to win a seat in the Colombian government. During his campaign, he spoke strongly against the extradition treaty. He told people it was bad for Colombia and gave too much power to the United States. But not everyone believed he was a hero. Many people did not trust him. Powerful people in the government did not want a drug trafficker in politics. The new president, Belisario Betancur, wanted him out. Betancur chose Rodrigo Lara Bonilla to be the Minister of Justice. Lara Bonilla's job was to go after drug lords like Escobar. Newspapers also started writing bad things about him. One big newspaper, El Espectador, wrote a long story about Escobar's arrest years before in 1976. This story showed how he used threats to avoid trouble. Suddenly, everyone was talking about Escobar's crimes. He was getting a lot of unwanted attention. The government and the U.S. Embassy put more pressure on him. His special protection as a member of parliament was taken away. Judges started looking into his old crimes again. Escobar realized that politics was making things worse for him, not better. On January 20th, 1984, he resigned from his position in the government. He left politics, but he promised to keep fighting against his enemies in other ways. 6. War against the country. Rodrigo Lara Bonilla was Colombia's justice minister. He wanted to stop Pablo Escobar and other drug traffickers, but Escobar did not want to be stopped. On April 30th, 1984, Lara Bonilla was sitting in his car in Bogotá traffic. Suddenly, a motorcycle with two men pulled up beside his car. One man had a powerful gun. He shot Lara Bonilla many times. The justice minister died right there. The men who killed him worked for Escobar. This terrible event showed everyone that Escobar was starting a war. It was a war against his own country, the government of Colombia. Because of the killing, the government decided to act strongly. They wanted to use the extradition treaty with the United States. This treaty meant that drug traffickers like Escobar could be sent to the U.S. for trial. Escobar was very scared of this. He did not want to go to prison in America, so he quickly left Colombia with his wife and children. He stayed in Panama for a while and then went to Nicaragua, but he did not stay away for long. He returned to Colombia at the end of 1984. When Escobar came back, he needed help to fight the government. He started working with a Colombian guerrilla group called M19. M19, or the 19th of April movement, was a group of fighters. They were already fighting against the government in Colombia. Like Escobar, M19 did not like the extradition treaty. They thought it gave the U.S. too much power over Colombia. Escobar gave M19 money and support. Together, they planned a very big and dangerous attack in Bogotá. Their target was the Palace of Justice. This important building was where the Colombian Supreme Court judges worked. On November 6, 1985, about 35 M19 fighters stormed into the building. They were heavily armed. Inside, they took more than 300 people as hostages. Many of these hostages were the country's top judges. The M19 fighters demanded that the government end the extradition treaty. They also wanted the Colombian president to leave his job. The Colombian army arrived quickly and surrounded the Palace of Justice. For almost a full day, the situation was very tense. On the afternoon of November 7th, the army decided to attack the building to free the hostages. Soldiers stormed the palace. A terrible battle started inside. The fighting lasted for many hours. It was a disaster. Nearly 100 people were killed during the fight. Almost all the M19 fighters died. Sadly, half of the Supreme Court judges, 12 judges, were also killed. Something else important happened during the attack. A big fire started inside the Palace of Justice. This fire destroyed many rooms and thousands of important legal papers. These papers had information about many drug traffickers, including Escobar. They were evidence for crimes. Losing this evidence was very helpful for Escobar and other traffickers. It became much harder for the police and the courts to charge them with crimes. Some people believed the M19 fighters burned the papers on purpose to help Escobar, but it is more likely the fire was an accident caused by the army's attack. The attack on the Palace of Justice was a dark day for Colombia. It showed how violent Escobar's war against the country had become. 7. The King of Cocaine. In 1986, Colombia got a new president, Virgilio Barco. He decided to be tougher on Escobar and the drug groups. Early in 1987, the police showed this new plan. They stopped some of Escobar's cars. Pablo was not in the cars, but the police caught his wife Maria and their children, Juan and Manuela. They had to stay in a police station for some hours. Then Escobar's lawyers helped them get out. This showed the government wanted to stop Escobar and was willing to go after his family. But the government was not Escobar's only enemy. Another big drug group, the Cali Cartel, started fighting with Escobar's Medellin cartel. This began around the middle of the 1980s. By late 1987, it was a real war between them. There were many killings and bombs used by both groups. In 1988, the Cali Cartel even put a car bomb outside Escobar's house in Medellin. This fight with the Cali Cartel did not stop. It continued for the rest of Pablo's life. Even with these big problems, the late 1980s were the time when the Medellin cartel was strongest. They became very rich and very powerful. People wanted more and more cocaine, especially in the United States. The cartel made huge amounts of money. It earned maybe $70 million every day. That was about $25 billion every year. The Medellin cartel controlled most of the cocaine business in the world, about 80%. They had so much cash money, they spent about $1,000 each week just buying rubber bands to put around the money. Sometimes, maybe 10% of the money was lost or eaten by rats because they could not hide it fast enough. Pablo used some of his money to make people like him. He gave a lot of money to Medellin's football team, Atlético Nacional. Because of his money, the team got much better players. In 1989, Atlético Nacional won a very important South American football prize, the Copa Libertadores. It was the first time a team from Colombia won this big cup. This made many people in Medellin and Colombia happy, and they liked Escobar more. But Medellin was becoming a very dangerous place to live. By the end of the 1980s, it was maybe the most dangerous city in the whole world. Many people were killed there every day. In the year 1991, more than 7,200 people were murdered in Medellin. That is an average of about 18 people killed every day. Escobar ordered terrible attacks that killed many people. He did not care if normal, innocent people died. In November 1989, he ordered a bomb on an airplane, Avianca Flight 203. The plane was flying inside Colombia. It exploded just 5 minutes after it left Bogotá. All 107 people on the plane died, and 3 people on the ground died too. Escobar wanted to kill a politician who he thought was on the plane, but the politician was not there. Only 2 weeks after the plane bomb, Escobar ordered another huge bomb. A truck full of dynamite exploded outside the DAS building in Bogotá. The DAS was an important police building. 57 people died and more than 2,000 people were hurt. Escobar wanted to kill the director of the DAS. These attacks showed that Escobar was ready to kill many innocent people. 8. The final days. Pablo Escobar tried to kill Cesar Gaviria, but Gaviria still won the election in 1990. The next year, 1991, Colombia made a new constitution. This new law stopped the government from sending drug traffickers to the United States. This was called extradition, and Escobar was very afraid of it. With extradition stopped, Escobar talked with the government. He agreed to go to prison, but only if he could build it himself. He built a special prison called La Catedral. It was on a hill near Medellin. It was more like a comfortable hotel than a prison. It had a football field, a bar, and nice rooms. Escobar could see the city below with a telescope. He continued to run his drug business from inside La Catedral. Many people learned about Escobar's easy life in his special prison. The government felt pressure and decided to move him to a normal army prison in July 1992. But Escobar found out about the plan. He had built a secret escape tunnel when La Catedral was made. He used it to escape before the soldiers arrived. After his escape, a very big search started. The Colombian police made a special group called the Search Block to find him. The United States sent soldiers and agents to help. Escobar's enemies also joined the hunt. These enemies included the Cali Cartel and a group called Los Peps. Los Peps was made of people whose families were hurt by Escobar. For almost 18 months, Escobar hid. He moved between different safe houses. The police and soldiers looked everywhere. They listened to phone calls to find him. On December 2, 1993, they found him. They traced a phone call he made to his family. He was hiding in a house in Medellin. Police and soldiers went into the house. Escobar and his bodyguard ran onto the roof. There was shooting. Escobar was shot and died on the rooftop. This was one day after his 44th birthday. Many people in Medellin were sad when Escobar died. Over 25,000 people went to his funeral. After his death, the Cali cartel became stronger for a short time, but soon other new drug groups appeared. Drug routes started to go through Mexico more often. Medellin slowly became safer. The city started to recover from the years of violence. Pablo Escobar has a complex history. Some people remember him as a Robin Hood who helped the poor. Others remember him only as a violent killer who brought pain to Colombia. What do you think about Pablo Escobar?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.